now we begin with our first set of original papers for today. This segment is called as Maiden Voyage, and our partners for this segment are Kantar. Kantar is the world's leading market data and analytics business and an indispensable brand partner to the world's top companies. Kantar combines the most meaningful attitudinal and behavioral data with deep expertise and advanced analytics to uncover how people think and act, and thereby helping clients shape marketing strategies for the future. To talk more about this segment, which is Maiden Voyage, we will invite on stage Dikshit Chanana, Country Director at Toluna, India, and a part of the committee to help us understand how we can explore the seas of market research like never before. Dikshit has had stints across Kantar and Karvi before joining Toluna in 2020. Welcome, Dikshit, and over to you.
Thank you so much, Amarjeet. Thank you, Simran. I hope all of you can hear me well. Right? It's an honor to introduce this very exciting session, Maiden Voyage. We all know we had a chaotic period of the pandemic in 2020, 2021. This is the period that challenged all of us in the market research industry to move beyond the conventional methods of research. This is the period where we saw that we are moving from offline to online research. This is the period where we saw that there are end-to-end research platforms that are coming, which are supporting us in the agility. As an industry, we are making a much-needed transition towards tools and methods that are transforming how the market research would be conducted in the country, has been conducted in the country for over the last few decades. Today, we are living in a digitally charged, data-driven world, where shifts in the marketplace are happening faster than we could ever think of. And this has an impact on how consumers are interacting with the brands. Maiden Voyage, it is the place of innovation. It is a space where we welcome new ideas and looking at new ways that can help us ride over rough seas or on choppy waters. And this is an important area because as an industry, we are looking at efficiencies and building agility in our sector. And therefore, innovation is the key. We all know that all voyages are not successful. We will have our share of failures. We will have our share of disappointments. But what is important is that we keep trying, learn, fail, trying again, and succeed. Our finalists and all the other papers that we have received in the category, we all saw that so much effort has going beyond the normal. And this was great to see from the jury perspective. This platform is a fantastic opportunity for all of us to listen to some of the great work that has happened over the last 1 year in the area of new thinking. And if you like them, stand up and applaud the efforts of all the participants because this was not easy. So let me not take more time here. Let's begin this very exciting session. Let's begin our maiden voyage. Thank you.
Thank you for that intro, Dikshit. We will now move on to the papers. And we have the first paper from team NielsenIQ and Diageo. And this paper is themed around Beyond the Horizon, Redefining Experiences in the Future Through the Lens of Motivation Paradigm.
Okay, hi everyone, a very good morning. I'm Debanjana. I look after qualitative from NIQ. Today I have here with me Srini from Diageo Innovation Planning and Divya from the qualitative team. And we'll take you through a very interesting paper which is called Beyond the Horizon. It's really unraveling experiences of the future, but looking at it from the motivation paradigm. And we did this particular work with Diageo. So let's start. Why did we first choose experiences as a topic, What really made us choose it? The main reason why we choose it is because today we're moving from a world of materialism to experientialism. Now, what do I really mean by that? That is to say that, it's just not about your physical possessions you own today. It's also about the experiences you own, which differentiates one person from another. So today it's all about owning experiences, maximizing life, and like I said, not so much about your physical possessions, but the kind of memories you collect, you live, and you relive and cherish. And that's happened with all of us. And this became even more important because Diageo as a brand stands for celebrating life. And what better way to celebrate life than actually creating and co-creating experiences? So with this, we went ahead to understand experiences of the future, and this would actually give Diageo an opportunity, a new opportunity to craft experiences, help them connect much more meaningfully with its audience, and move beyond just tangible brands. And here, when I talk about experiences, it could be any kind of experiences, travel experiences, culinary experiences, educational, cultural, it could be anything. So we set out on a very exciting piece of work, and we wanted to look at the future of experiences and how it would look like. Well, the future is very exciting, but it's also very unpredictable. So we tried various ways to tame it and many, many maiden ways to look at it. And the attempt of the paper is to show you the various ways in which we wanted to actually tame experiences. So let's look at the ways in which we tried to tame experiences. The first, we used 4 lenses. The first is the lens of the chronotope. Here we looked at experiences from the context of space and time. The next one, we deep dived into experiences further and looked at it as an interplay of connection and participation between the traveler or the person who was experiencing it and the experience. We didn't stop there. We went deeper. We understood the motivation which was guiding that particular experience, and then we applied a futuristic lens, not only how the experience would evolve over time, but how the meaning system around the motivation itself would evolve. Let's look at each one of them now. First is the concept of chronotope, where we looked at experiences as a concept of chronotope. Now, what is chronotope? Chronotope is basically to say that you can't see anything in one point in time. So even if you have to look at the future, you have to look at it in the context of the past and the present. Similarly, our past memories can guide our present experiences. Our present often gives rise to future desires. So I'll give you a very simple example. Imagine a childhood memory which you want to relive in the present time. You're reliving a past memory, but because you're experiencing it in a different time, probably a different space, it creates a whole new meaning system. Or imagine a traveler who's gone to one country, seen it as a traveler, come back, it's broadened their horizon, and they want to revisit that country, but not as a traveler this time, but to stay with the natives. Again, the space is the same, the time changes, creates a whole new meaning system. Similarly, distant future opportunities and experiences like augmented reality, slowly starting to become mainstream. So the whole concept is that everything is a fluid continuum, and you cannot see it constricted in a space and time. So while you can start with the mainstream, the moment you start backtracking, you get to the past, and when you look at the future, you get the future. So 3 micro experiences from just one experience. And we got many, many experience stories. We met travel experts, photographers, curators who gave us niche and trailblazing experiences, but then we backtracked it to the mainstream consumers. We met different generational cohorts. We met millennials, Gen Zs, metros, tier 1, tier 2, and even had non-binary representation to see the mainstream experiences people were talking about. But again, like I said, our task was to really tame experiences, so we went further and looked at experiences as an interplay of connection and participation, which is this particular framework which I want to explain, which is you can either passively participate in an experience or actively participate. You can absorb yourself or immerse yourself. When you're absorbing yourself, you're really looking at it from a distance. When you immerse yourself, you're actually engaging all your senses, which gives you 4 kinds of experiences. The first, passive absorption, more like entertainment. Imagine watching a spectacular show at a Rajasthan fort. The second one is active absorption, which is all about education. The third is passive immersion. Imagine sitting at an underwater restaurant and enjoying your meal. You're engaging your senses, but you can't touch the water. So you're still more passively immersed in it. And then active immersion, escape. We've heard about whiskey trails, Sula vineyards. Those are all experiences where you engage your senses. Again, this gave us a very good understanding of experiences, but we knew experiences are also transient and they will eventually change over time. So we needed something which was much more unchanging, much more constant, and that's when we looked at the core motivation anchoring each experience. And now I'll hand it over to Divya to talk more about the motivation paradigm.
Thank you, Debanjana, for setting that context so beautifully. And much like Debanjana said, we crystallized all the amazing consumer stories around experiences to really arrive at 6 broad themes in experiences, which were purpose, passion, pleasure, exploration, projection, and intellectual stimulation. And we saw that each of these themes could be, really rooted in multiple dimensions, which could be, stating from physiological, psychological to cultural. And it all dependent upon the traveler's expectations from the experience itself. Now let's take a look at passion as an example, which is passion in experiences as a theme. And much like Debanjana said, passion in experiences are really rooted in the active immersive space where you're actively participating in the experience while engaging all your senses. And we saw that the passion in experiences was guided by the core motivation of thrill. Now, what we saw there was that while thrill as a motivation remained constant, anchoring the entire end payoff that the consumer sought from the experience, but the meaning system around it really metamorphosized. And how that happened was that today we see that there were a lot of stories that we heard from consumers which were still talking about the dominant shade of thrill as a motivation, which was about physiologically challenging yourself and your physical strength. Now, you can imagine going to a country that's known for adventure sports and doing scuba diving there, or paragliding, or imagine yourself going on a biking trip to the Himalayan terrains. Very physical, challenging your strength. Now, while that was really, many people talked about that, we also heard many interesting stories which were about challenging your mind, the psychological, lever of thrill as a motivation. Imagine sitting in a dark restaurant, blindfolded, and the first interest you have with the food that you ordered is through the aroma of the food. You can't see it, but you can really engage your senses to really enjoy that. A step further, we looked at also a lot of stories emerging which talked about the cultural dimension of thrill as a motivation. Again, imagine going to a country and partaking in a very ritualistic tradition with the tribals of, say, the dense forests of Bali. Your belief system is challenged, your soul is challenged, and you come back from that experience with a lot of new meaning systems. So what we saw really was that with the one motivation of thrill, there were micro experiences which had a lot of different elements while the core remained the constant. And this really gave us a lot of opportunities to tap into the future. Again, we didn't stop there. We moved a bit further and we also mapped the evolution of these experiences and the motivations guiding them to the multiple cohorts that we met. And we did so because Diageo has a wide portfolio of brands that caters to different consumer cohorts. So while the experience could be the same, it needed to be curated to really look at the evolution and the ethos of the experiencer. And therefore, again, if I take example of passion in experiences, we saw that while the middle class Gen Z tier from tier 2 towns were still talking about the physiological aspect of thrill as a motivation, the young affluent Gen Zs and high net worth millennials were talking about the psychological and the cultural dimension of it. So that really helped us to, if I sum it up, if we look at the passion as theme in experiences, we took that, we saw it that the motivation that was guiding it was really thrill. And then we also looked at the different dimensions of thrill that really came into the forefront and the cohorts that were connecting to each of those elements. And finally arrived at a playbook of experiences to really understand and decode experiences from the lens of the end payoff that the consumer sought from it, the level of engagement, participation, and connection that they had, the memories, sensorials, and the functional elements that built it up to finally create cues into how a brand can create brand love in those moments. And we arrived at an action plan for each of those themes through designing the semiotics and the tonality of the space, the collaterals that really needed to bring the place together, the roles that actors needed to have in that space, and the kind of rituals that would really define what would happen. And finally, if there were any watchouts or guardrails that the brand needed to look out for. And now I invite Srini to please talk about how they used the insights from the study. Over to you, Srini.
Can you hear me, everyone? Yeah. Thank you so much, Devanjana and Divya. So what we did was that because the media, the category, the alcobev category in India is media dark, experiences are a very key pillar in kind of driving affinity towards the brand. And it has to provide our consumers with emotional memories through our experiences which are long lasting. So I'm just going to talk about two of the experiences that we have. One is the table for everyone, where we have consumers from all walks of life coming in together and talking about sharing memories, perspectives, creating new memories, sharing their memories all over food. So this was something where the playbook which came as a result of this research kind of gave us a lot of direction into making these experiences more personal, more meaningful, and the ability to be able to be relived over and over again. One of the other ones that we had was the successful launch of the Godawan 100. So it was a limited edition collector's liquid where the entire experience, which was for a select guest list, they were transported metaphorically and physically as well into a world of Rajasthan where the brand is based on. The entire theme was in a 200-year-old fort in Rajasthan where we combined the cultural history and the culinary heritage of Rajasthan and provided a highly multisensorial experience for all our consumers. The playbook also gave us a lot more insight on how we can make this, to fine tune this to make it even more simple, magical, distinct, and at the same time luxurious. Thank you very much.
First is, how is this a different methodology? Qual research in general do deep dives into experiences and analysis. How did you arrive at that?
So I think the most differentiating aspect of how we really went about the entire experience was to look at it through the lens of chronotope, which is basically not really, tying ourselves in one point in time. We constantly backtracked to the past to really see how it is evolving in the present, and also gazed into the future to really try and tame the future by looking at how this will evolve in the future. Sorry.
Yeah, and also to add on another point, while in qualitative we look at motivations quite a bit, we don't attempt to look at the varying shades of motivations to see the dominant and the emergent shades and how it would kind of transcend the boundaries, and then mapping it with segments where one segment can be very attached to the dominant code while the other segments are showing signs of the emergent code. So I think that's another step beyond what we did. So yes, its starting point was same, but we went much deeper.
Can you elaborate the difference between active immersion and active absorption?
So if you look at active immersion as a space, well, like I said, absorption is when you're enjoying that particular experience from a distance, and immersion is when you're immersing and engaging your senses. I think that's the key difference. So when you look at active immersion, it is a space, so for instance, active immersion I think is on the right-hand side, top right quadrant. Bottom right quadrant. The active immersion space basically talks about an experience like, say, a whiskey trail or somewhere where you're engaging your senses. The senses have to be engaged. Whereas for the upper quadrant, which is the active absorption, you're absorbing it from a distance. You're not necessarily partaking it in and emerging your senses. Like, for instance, education, learning to cook something, or, learning about whiskey, or an educational tour. Those would be more of absorption because you're not fully absorbing your senses. It's still from a distance.
And just to add to that, when you're actually in the active absorption space, like the Banjana said, it's about education, but in the active immersion space, it's almost like an escape. You escape from your everyday mundane reality to really transport yourself into a space where all your senses are taken over by that particular space and the experience that you're really enjoying, and you forget about what is happening in the rest of the the other aspects of your life. So it's like that momentarily escaping out of the mundane and the monotonous.
Thank you.
Thank you.